Queen's epic put down to former Prime Minister in astonishing clip, "You're expendable." The Queen had an epic put down for former Prime Minister Edward Heath in a resurfaced clip. Her Majesty told Mr. Heath at a meeting of world leaders in 1991 that he was expendable. The 95-year-old monarch has worked with 15 prime ministers from Winston Churchill to Boris Johnson and had weekly meetings with Mr. Heath during his premiership between 1970 and 1974. At a meeting of the G7 30 years ago, the Queen was filmed speaking to George H.W. Bush's Chief of Staff James Baker and Mr. Heath, the clip of which then appeared in the 1992 documentary Elizabeth R. The three of them were discussing the situation in Iraq and Saddam Hussein before the Gulf War, and Mr. Bush described a conversation he had with former Iraqi Deputy Prime Minister Tariq Aziz. Mr. Bush said, "I told Tariq Aziz in 76 hours exactly that, and we also told him exactly what would happen if they didn't, and that's what happened." Mr. Heath said, "You didn't tell him face to face." The Queen then chimed in, "But he couldn't. He couldn't go to Baghdad like you could." Mr. Heath said, "Why not? I went to Baghdad." The Queen laughed and said, "I know you did, but you're expendable now. You're expendable. He couldn't go to Baghdad at that moment." Mr. Heath replied, "Yes, I'm expendable, that's true." The Queen's comment was likely a reference to the fact that Mr. Heath was no longer in frontline politics. Mr. Heath, who was on the left of the Conservative Party, had a poor relationship with Margaret Thatcher, who was Prime Minister at the time the footage was taken. However, just a year before he had flown to Baghdad to attempt to negotiate the release of aircraft passengers on British Airways Flight 149 and other British nationals taken hostage when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. Mr. Heath remained on the backbenches until the 2001 general election, when he retired, and he died just 4 years later aged 89. The clip of his interaction with Mr. Baker and the Queen was shared on Twitter by Ben Britton, who wrote, "Brilliant clip of a G7 drinks reception, featuring Thatcher, Lady Di and even HM speaking French." Numerous social media users praised the Queen's sense of humor, with one saying, "This is gold." Particularly love the Queen telling Ted Heath he's expendable. Another said, "This is marvelous. Especially Ted Heath being not at all deferential to HM at the end, and she says you're expendable." A third wrote, "My favorite moment was Her Majesty telling Ted Heath, jokingly, that he is expendable. However, several royal fans noticed that both Mr. Bush and Mr. Heath interrupted and spoke over Her Majesty as she tried to contribute to the conversation. Journalist Flora Gill, who is the daughter of former Home Secretary Amber Rudd and journalist A. Gill, said, "Even if you're the Queen of F*** King England, some men will repeatedly interrupt and talk over you. Love her clap back." Another royal watcher said it was quite amazing, but a bit of an eye-opener to see Ted Heath and the other man, George H.W. Bush, talking over the Queen. Even Peter Fitzsimmons, chair of the Australian Republic movement, who opposes the British monarchy's supremacy down under, said, "This is an arresting clip indeed. Like a scene from the movie, but they are real." And allow me to express my slight dismay at those overbearing men, including Ted Heath, speaking over and interrupting her. Yet another accused Mr. Heath and Mr. Barker of trying to mansplain Hussein to the Queen. Elizabeth R., A Year in the Life of the Queen, aired on the BBC in 1992. It was the first officially approved documentary about the British monarchy since Royal Family in 1969.